Good evening and welcome to this budget town hall. We are at the City Hall Annex this evening, which is in Councilmember District 3. We are doing 5 of these budget town halls, one in each of our council member districts. And I want to acknowledge that present with us this evening is the council member elect for this district, Peter Brem. Thank you so much for being here. I don't know if there's anything that you wish to say before we get started, but I certainly would invite you to come to the podium if there was anything that you wanted to say by way of greeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you all for attending. The most important part of city governance is the budget, and the fact that you're here says a lot. So I really appreciate your attendance and participation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember-elect. What we want to use this evening for is to provide a brief overview of the city's budget process to make it really clear where the public has opportunities to intersect with that process, and hopefully to clarify what will happen over the next 4 to 6 months as we work through, as Councilmember-elect, maybe the most important thing that we do on an annual basis in the city of Frederick. From the outset, I think it's important to note that a budget is the best educated guess that we can offer in terms of where we think our revenues are going to show up and how we anticipate spending the revenues on services for the residents of the city of Frederick. In many respects, that process feels like it begins almost immediately after the last budget cycle has been put to bed. Our budget office is already working very early in the fiscal year on projections for the upcoming year, and the departments are already thinking about the next year's expenditures, in large part because in any given year we know that the number of requests that are going to come in from our departments is going to exceed the amount of revenue that we have available, and that work is a constant evaluation then of the things that didn't get funded this year, what are going to be the priorities for upcoming years. So in the November-December timeframe, there's a lot that's happening under the surface at the department level, but this is really the opportunity for public engagement as well. So we conduct these town halls to begin to have conversations with our community about what their priorities are. Internally, from December through February, budget requests have to be into the budget office from the departments by the end of the calendar year. And those budget priorities from the departments are prioritized. And in January and February, while they're finalizing what a budget public hearing will look like from the council perspective, I'm having meetings at the departmental level with our budget staff to review all of those internal budget requests that have come in, to review those priorities and to work with the staff on developing what will become the mayor's proposed budget, looking at both the operating budget and our capital budget, looking at recurring expenditures and revenues and anything that is anticipated to be new for the coming fiscal year. We have to effectively finish that process towards the end of February, the beginning of March, because there is a logistical timing that it takes to actually pull the budget documents together and have them ready for presentation to the council by April 1st. That is the date that is established in the charter as the date by which I must submit a balanced budget to the council. Prior to April 1st, the council will have met and discussed a public hearing schedule, and they may have one or more hearings. It is entirely at the council's discretion on how they'd like to go through the process of reviewing the mayor's proposed budget in anticipation of ultimately adopting that budget as we get closer to the start of the fiscal year. In that May-June timeframe, there are a lot of things that happen relative to the budget process. There will be some budget hearings in that month. The council must set a property tax rate for the coming year. That needs to be done by the end of May. May 20th is a date that we keep in mind, and that is to allow time for the county to print the property tax bills that will be mailed at the beginning of the fiscal year. We work with the county as our agent to make that happen. The budget, the tax rate, and the administrative fee schedule, which is also reviewed by the council, are all approved by simple majority. I mentioned that we're in Council District 3 tonight. That is one of the changes for this upcoming budget cycle that we will be looking at. Previously, we had 5 council members and they were all at large. How we go through this process now with 7 council members, 5 of whom represent specific districts, is a different consideration as we look at the budget to make sure that we are providing all of the resources that we can across all of the districts in ways that will satisfy that district representation. We also, when there were only 5 members of the council, needed to get 3 votes in order to pass a budget. With 7 members of the council, it will now require 4 votes to pass the budget, the tax rate, and the administrative fee schedule. The budget must, by charter, be adopted by June 20th. If a budget is not adopted by the council by June 20th, then the mayor's proposed budget will become the budget on July 1st. We are not in a situation that they are at the federal level where we won't have a budget after a certain date. Our charter requires us to have a budget on July 1st, and there is a provision for how that occurs if one does not get passed by the council. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to have a mayor's proposed budget. This is a visual that takes us through that process, the budget town halls that we're doing now, the internal departmental requests being submitted before the end of the calendar year, a review of those requests with the mayor and relevant department staff, the development of that mayor's proposed budget that will be presented to the city council, their public hearing process and workshops through the spring, ultimately resulting in the adoption of the budget and the tax rate. The budget that I submit has to be balanced. Every budget that comes through this process, whether it's the mayor's proposed budget or any changes that the council might make to the budget, has to produce a balanced budget at the end. That is, revenues must equal expenditures. Any changes that I make to the budget between the time of my presentation of that on April 1st up until May 14th is the mayor's proposed budget. So I have the ability throughout that public hearing process up to May 14th to make changes to the budget and have that budget be the mayor's proposed balanced budget. After May 14th, the authority to make changes to the budget rests solely with the council. The council can amend that budget. Often that is done the night the budget is adopted with one or a series of motions to make changes to the budget, again, keeping the budget balanced at all times. There are a number of different ways that the public can engage with this process, and we want to make sure that everyone is clear on that. It starts with these kinds of town halls. It will include an online budget feedback form that will be available on the city's website. Those hearings and workshops that I have mentioned that the council will set up early in calendar year 2026 in anticipation of getting the budget on April 1st. And then, of course, with this representative process that we have, and certainly we have high expectations with this district representation that residents will be reaching out to their council member representing their district and sharing with them budget priorities. The council members individually will have their own opportunities to establish the ways in which they want to engage with their districts and receive feedback from the community on the budget process. We wanted to give you a little bit of a picture of how your budget dollar gets spent. So for the current fiscal year that we're in, fiscal year 2026, we have an operating general fund budget of $151 million. And that is broken down on a per dollar basis with about 34 cents of that going to public safety or the police department. There are expenditures for general government operations, planning, engineering, permits, and inspections, the Operations Department of Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Economic Development, Housing and Human Services, other undefined, but thankfully it's a relatively small percentage of that whole. It's other things that are not easily classified within these other areas, debt service, and the city's rainy day fund. It's important to make a note about the rainy day fund. This is required in our financial policies of the city of Frederick, that about 12% of the city's general fund expenditures get set aside as a rainy day fund in the event of some sort of catastrophic or cataclysmic budget event. It's also important to put that into some perspective. We have had, in my time in office, significant blizzards in the city of Frederick, some very snowy winters, not recently, we've had catastrophic flooding. We have dealt with a global pandemic. In none of those instances have we had to dip into our rainy day fund in order to end those fiscal years with a balanced budget. So when we talk about this 12% reserve, it really is for something that up until this point has been completely unforeseen. Our property tax rate is about 70 cents. That was dropped by about 3% as a result of last year's budget deliberation. 69% of our revenues come from property taxes. We're very dependent on property taxes to fund government. That is good and it's bad. I will tell you that during the pandemic, when we did not see the impact of the losses in sales tax revenue for a couple of months that everything's were shut down, that was good. But when we're seeing the kind of accelerating property values that we've had in the city over the last couple of years, being so dependent on property tax revenue is not necessarily favorable for our residents. I will tell you that from a municipal perspective across the state of Maryland, this is a conversation that we want to have with the legislature about how we can diversify the tax base for the city of Frederick, for all municipalities in the state of Maryland, and hopefully become a little less dependent on property tax revenues as a primary funder. There's income tax, which would be the second largest area, and then another 14% or so that is provided by other taxes and fees and so forth for the city of Frederick. That is the big overview for our budget process, to kind of give you a sense of where we are in the process and where the public fits in. We offer this opportunity now to anyone who wishes to tell us how they would like us to prioritize and think about this upcoming budget process. We have a microphone, and we just ask you to sort of come forward if you have anything that you wish to say at this time. Is there anyone who wishes to make any or offer any testimony on the city's upcoming budget process?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for hosting this meeting. My name is Christian Benford. I'm a city resident. I live in District 3, but my comment, I guess if we're going to boil it down to one of the categories listed is in, I think it would fit in infrastructure and economic development. I'd like to see an expansion in transit services, especially along the Golden Mile. I think they need a dedicated circulator. I know a lot of the residents there not only live there, but also work there. I think there's also a severe lack of infill service, and I know this is a county issue as well, but I think there is a good opportunity to foster that partnership with the county to expand transit services. I don't think there's a reason that someone should have to wait another hour just for the bus that comes on the hour. To me, there's that severe lack of good transit services that could, like I said, just to get that infill and the gaps in neighborhood transportation.
Thank you very much. For the sake of clarity, I will point out that at present time, transit services are a county-funded operation, but the point of how we can continue to communicate and collaborate with the county on the provision of those services to our residents in the city of Frederick, I agree, is an important one. So thank you for that. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer any public comment on our budget process at this time? Seeing none, I thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate the opportunity to engage with the community. As we've indicated, there are a number of ways in which the community can continue to provide its input into this process through that budget feedback form, your council members' email, and we have one more budget town hall scheduled, and that is happening next Monday at Hood College, which is in Council District 5. Thank you all very much for being here. Have a wonderful evening.